Good morning, in case you're just joining us, and if you have been with us since we began the show, then you had it right. Today we want to focus on Matters Women, celebrating women on this particular day, the 8th of March, the year 2023, a day when the entire globe sits down and focuses on the achievement that women have contributed in society, in culture, in economy, and in every crucial space that women have been able to tap into amid several challenges that have widened the gender gap in some of these spaces. And we'll be talking about those issues and how to address them. I have a panel of 4 that cuts across the male and the female represented on my panel this morning. I'm excited about this. So thank you so much. Just allow me to introduce my panel for you before we kickstart our conversation this morning. On my far right, we have Mwangi Githaiga. He's the Managing Director of the Kenya Women Microfinance Bank, formerly known as the Kenya Women Finance Trust. Thank you for creating time for us. And of course, we have in studio also Dr. Geraldine Lengai. Geraldine is a woman we celebrate this morning because she is the winner of the 2022 L'Oreal UNESCO for Women in Science from the Sub-Saharan Africa Young Talent Award. Thank you for creating time for us. She also lectures at the University of Nairobi. And in studio with us this morning also we have Scholastica Carrier. She's a gender inclusion specialist and also works at the Microsave Consulting. Thank you so much for creating time. We have Mercy Okiro. Mercy is the Vice Chairperson at the Gender Board of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance and also serves at the Board of the National Construction Authority. Thank you, Mercy. She's also an advocate of the High Court. All right, so I told you we have a panel that is going to discuss all the critical issues and why we need to focus on inclusion of women in all the pivotal spaces in our society and the role that can play in making us edge closer to achieving our sustainable development goals. So let's begin straight away. And because you're the minority, unfortunately, Mr. Githaiga, let me start with you and just ask you why this day is important for you, first as a man, and secondly, as a man who is working in an industry that you really interact and network with women a lot on a regular basis. Why is this day important for you?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very, very proud to be associated with women, and for many reasons. And I'm happy to have my 3 panelists who are also women and who understand things even more deeper. But I came from a background where I was brought up by my mom with the rest of my family members, and I saw how much contribution she had to make. Those days, things were a little bit difficult for women, including, a challenge of being a single mother and bringing up a family. So I grew up knowing that women are very, very critical and they have a very important role to play in the country. I've worked in the bank for the last 26 years and have interacted nationally and internationally. And I think women are the core of this economy. And we work with low-income women, especially majority of them who are based in the rural area. And we understand the things that they do and how you can't be able to grow a country without including women in the midst of it. So to be able to build an economy, strong homes, strong society and community, we need women to be put at the center of it. And women economic empowerment is the strongest tool for women empowerment. For women empowerment. And we will talk about practically how to make that happen in the course of this particular conversation, and also inclusion of men in bridging this gender inequality gap in the course of this broadcast as well. But let me give you a chance also to tell us a bit more about yourself, Geraldine. And the reason I'm asking you this is because sitting there, being the winner of the 2022 UNESCO Award for Women in Science, an area that we are still talking about as untapped for women. It is still far off. Very few women. We see very few faces when it comes to science, technology, and those technical aspects of our society. So tell me a bit more about how you ended up getting this recognition.
The journey, thank you for having me. The journey began a while back, like any other young girl growing up in the village and joining school, the normal stages, the primary school, secondary, all the way to the University of Nairobi to study Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. But until then, it was not clear because of lack of mentorship. You still don't have, I still didn't have an idea of where am I going with this career. Actually, because at first I thought I'm going to be a teacher, a high school teacher teaching English and literature. But then because of the admission process back then, I found myself pursuing agriculture. And then after finishing my bachelor's, I went ahead and got a scholarship to study Master of Science in Crop Protection. And now at that point, there was no going back because now I'm already in science. I'm already seeing, you know, things happening in plants and diseases and insects and that. And I'm interacting with people in the institution, University of Nairobi, and also interning at the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology. So I'm inside there, and I realize now I can't go back. So I just have to forge ahead. And after that, I actually realized I'm in science to stay after master's. And I get a scholarship courtesy of DAD to now pursue my PhD. And once you are at that level, there is no turning back. And so I graduated with my PhD in 2021, and I see this call by L'Oreal and UNESCO. And I applied, and the application process is such that you have to be in STEM. My category is life and environmental sciences. So I applied, and because of the research that I do regarding botanical pesticides, I think that is part of why I was chosen by the jury. And now I get the award, and I have to use that award as a mentorship and motivation for other young girls and women in science.
Great, great.
Yeah.
You're so modest at how you tell us about this. If I was you, I would be all over the place. Because there are very few of you in that space, right? In the space of science, you have been there. Tell me more about the numbers you have seen, your peers, your colleagues. Do we have more women?
We don't have as many women as we would like. And according to the statistics provided by L'Oreal and UNESCO, we only have 33% in the entire sub-Saharan Africa of women in science. And that is medicine, engineering, physics, all bundled up together. And it gets interesting because at bachelor's level, we have so many female students joining. The numbers are actually sometimes higher than the male colleagues. But then going higher, the postgraduate, the masters, the number starts to reduce. When you now talk about PhD, the numbers become even lesser. Going to the postdoc category where I am at the moment, we are very few. Very few might find currently at the University of Nairobi, we are Department of Plant Science, probably we are only 2 that I know of. And then of course, I have other colleagues from other institutions. Again, you find it's 2 female, again it's probably 10 or so male.
The ratio is still very poor.
Very, very, very poor, yes. And,
all right.
Yeah.
Scholastica, if you marry what she has just told us to the theme of this year, the UN theme for the 2022 I beg your pardon, International Women's Day, which is digital, whereby innovation and technology is going to be used or tapped to for gender equality. I find this quite unique, don't you think?
Yeah, it's extremely exciting, and of course the fact that we've chosen this theme to talk about innovation and technology, and especially for gender equality, then it becomes very exciting, and especially borrowing from what she's saying, where are we as women, where are our girls when it comes to innovation and technology? Let me start by saying that I work for an organization, Microsoft Consulting, whose key role is to ensure that women and girls are well integrated in matters to do with technology and innovation. And in these, we do quite a lot, especially in trying to identify the drivers of gender inequality when it comes to digital spaces. And what my colleague is saying is very true, actually. We've done quite a lot in terms of research, trying to identify the barriers of inclusivity when it comes to the digital space. And we've realized that women are completely unrepresented, and especially in the developing and least developed countries. And what we are seeing is that if women are not part of this development, technology is everything. During COVID, we realized that everything was about technology. We had to sit in and look at our economy growing through technology. So we ask ourselves, if women and girls are not part of this, where is the 50% of the population? And tracing it back to our education system, I'm slightly older than most of us here. When I was in school, our preference was the arts. And that's what the education system said. Those of us who went for the A levels, the Form 6 of the then, most of the schools actually were hard subjects, and the sciences and engineering, the sciences were more preserved for the boys. And so you see the trajectory continues that way. The women we have today are a bit disadvantaged. Probably we shall be looking at what we can do to ensure that women are not left behind in development, and especially when we talk about sustainable development, not just the development that is passing.
All right, indeed. Making sure that no woman is left behind. I hope we can go beyond just this being very big words and actually just implement in terms of the interventions that we come up with in the different spaces. But let me just also get your mind on this, Okiro. If you look at even the business, in the world of business, and now we are at a space where you cannot ignore e-commerce, technology has sort of like taken over everything. How are women faring in tapping these opportunities that experts say cannot be matched?
Thank you so much for the opportunity and for inviting me to studio. In line with just what my co-panelists have said, and also as I piggyback on the theme for this year's International Women's Day, one thing that came out clearly during the COVID era, and now we can comfortably say more or less we're in a post-COVID era, is the issue of digital transformation and how digitization of economies and work really is at the center of people. Now, the problem is this. Women have been disenfranchised generally as compared to men in many sectors. So that this is not any different also when it comes to access to technology and also innovation really. So that you'll find that a UN study really came up with the data, I think 2 years ago, and it was really shown that the amount of women locked out of access in terms of digital technologies, and this is including hardware and software, so that even outside the software, just access to smartphones, which are really the basic hardware in terms of access to technology, the world loses $1 trillion. And by 2025, if no steps are taken to bridge that gap, then that number will increase by 50%. So what am I saying? Girls and women generally have always been disenfranchised in terms of access and also in terms of empowerment. And that's why today, in line with International Women's Day, we are thinking about how do we bridge the gap and how far have we come. In terms of technology, the data is there, the numbers are there. So that right now, in this modern world, just as my co-panelists have said, previously literacy was just education, but now being locked out of digital literacy, you are as good as illiterate. And when a huge number of our population, for instance in countries like Bangladesh, about 13% of women are able to access technology. What does that mean? It means that only 13% of women may be deemed to be digital literate, and that is just access. So that we're still behind, and that I think is the reason that the theme for this year's International Women's Day really was selected, because we are now in what we call, what can I call it? We're in the fourth industrial revolution, where technology and innovation is at the center of economies. And superpowers will be determined by how you access data, how you use your access to technology and how you bridge that. So that we are behind.
Yeah.
And the more we are behind...
Like we're playing catch up.
No, we are behind. And this exclusion will mean loss of money, of course, from a business perspective, as I've given in that example. And also when you think about issues like e-commerce, it's really not a good effect really for businesses.
And on the same question, just Mr. Githaiga, $1 trillion are lost from the gross domestic product of low and middle income countries. By 2025, it will hit, according to the projections by UN, $1.5 trillion. I mean, this is a huge loss, if you ask me, for countries that are categorized as low and middle income. One would then ask, how is technology connected to economy? Let's make it basic from where you sit.
I think, thank you very much. I think it's very important that we embrace technology, and that's one of the biggest problems, especially in Africa, we've been having, and especially the third world countries, whatever we call them, the developing countries. And when you think about our country, Kenya, majority of our people are based in the rural area. And it's important that the government, we took upon ourselves to pass a constitution that devolves certain functions. So we've seen improvement. We are not there yet as a country, but over the last, say, 20 years, we've seen a lot of changes. We've seen mobile technology, mobile phones being available, across the country. The main thing is the usage, and we can't complain too much. Kenya is one of the most advanced countries in Africa as far as digital connectivity is concerned, and the issue of even fiber optic, we are getting there, but we are not there yet. And especially for the kind of focus of women we work with, who are the ones who are very key in the rural area, where we are working in 45 of the 47 counties with about 229 branches spread across Kenya. And we are working with about 800,000 women who initially were excluded from the financial sector. And what the biggest exclusion before even we go to digital is financial exclusion.
And we'll talk about that in a bit, because that's also like a thorn in the flesh, because when you talk about empowerment, you can't talk about women empowerment without talking about financial inclusion. Yeah. So we'll talk about that in just a bit. And just to rope you in, Geraldine, because we all agree that there are certain barriers, factors that are still widening that inequality gap in the digital space for women. And when we say digital, I'd like to extend this to just call it STEM, because they are all categorized under the technical areas that women are yet to tap into. You have been in that space. Tell me a bit more about some of the challenges you have seen that would be blocking more women from joining that space, and practically, how then do we make it friendlier, a space that women can thrive in from your understanding?
Thank you for that. And I'll also want to, even though I'm giving my own opinion, I'd also want to loop in the opinion of the 20 other awardees that we were together with, because they also got to share their experiences. And my co-panelist here said those barriers, they go way back from when you are actually in school. People expect, because you are a girl, you are more likely to go towards the art side, and it's like an agreed thing, even though nobody has really agreed. It's a silent agreement that I'm supposed to be, a teacher or a nurse, or those, easy, simple things that are doable by females.
Easy, though. If you ask them,
they'll say the thing. And so those now the societal expectation is one of the barriers that we are way far from actually overcoming. From the day you're born, somebody expects you to be, and then once you're able to overcome the educational part of it, and you grow up to some age around your 20s, when your male colleagues are going further with their education, people are starting to expect you to go towards the female way. We need you to be married. We need you to have children. And if you go a certain age, If you hit 25, then you can already see the red lights knocking. And apart from the societal expectations, we also have discrimination. You've already made it, yes, and you are already at the table. But even fellow female and mostly the male, they are showing you that, why are you here?
Like you're in the wrong
shouldn't you, if you have to work, there are times when I would have to go overnight in a laboratory working, and we have the male also researchers working, and they're like, shouldn't you be at home, cooking or doing other things that are totally female? And even though you're doing well, sometimes even better than them, but there is a constant reminder that you should be doing other things other than being here. So there is that discrimination and also the access. Sometimes when you want to be part of the spaces that are male-dominated, even getting the access to enter those spaces, sometimes it's not always an open welcome. And another thing is lack of mentorship. If you don't have fellow female in the same line of work, you can't even begin to dream that I want to be there. But at least if you look up and see, oh, so-and-so is doing this, I would like to be her in 5 or 10 years' time. And so mentorship is also a big contributor, the lack of it, and because also the presence of it contributes to the success of those young women wanting to join the circle of STEM. Yeah.
I like one thing you've said, the lack of trailblazers, those who've gone ahead of the pack to do it, those who are brave enough to break that glass ceiling and say that they want to sit at that space that many people would think is wrong for them.
Yeah.
Those women who do that then would encourage others that it can actually happen.
Yes.
And I just want to understand then from Scholastica, how then do we ensure that there is adequate skills, funding, and support for opportunities for women to get to that space, to break the glass ceiling when it comes to tech, when it comes to STEM? What should be done to ensure that that happens? And I'll also like to rope you in, Okiro, on this.
As we think about what needs to be done, the first thing is we need to ask ourselves, when did the rain start beating us? And like my colleague has mentioned, there are so many started from way back. And I would want to very quickly talk about the levels of inequality so that as you even talk about what needs to be done, we get to understand at what level do we get in. The first level is the biological birth of 8, where a boy and a girl are different, created differently, got different abilities in terms of strength and everything. And so with that, nothing much can be done, but we can encourage the girls to be to be more adaptive to things that are, aligned to STEM. And the boys also to give them the space to do that. The other level of inequality is sociological. What is it that we are told as we are growing up? We are told that a girl cannot do that, a woman cannot do that, but this is meant for boys and for girls, just like it has been explained. As you grow and you get into the working spaces, you realize that the inequalities are still there. When you get to an institution, what do they tell you? That the manager, the CEO, is a man. And the secretary, I'm not in any way demeaning the work of the secretary, but the secretary is a woman. So when it comes to that level of empowerment, we are actually socialized to believe that the softer landings are meant to be for the women. What do we do about that? Then I think it's up to us to change our worldview, our way of thinking, our way of looking at things so that the women can actually go for it and also make the structures and the systems favorable for the women to get there. The other level of inequality is institutional. Institutional in the sense that the policies, the structures, the strategies make it very difficult for the women to move ahead. Just a few days ago, we watched the documentary that was aired by BBC on matters sexual harassment, I want to imagine that organizations have got policies that protect women from sexual harassment. But what do we say? Are these policies implemented? I want to imagine before it got to BBC, something had been reported within the organization. What was done? So I think we need to be very serious and very intentional and very deliberate on implementing policies and strategies that support women. Because if for you to get a job, you know, there are other barriers there, then it becomes very difficult for you to move up the rank. The other one is the micro-interaction. What is it that we tell ourselves as women? For example, just to dive a little bit into the political leadership, what is it that we tell ourselves as women? Oh, that space is dirty. As a woman, I need to be clean. I cannot get there. So even as we are talking about women leadership, we are actually telling ourselves that we cannot do it. And even as voters, why is it that we don't vote our women leaders? Because we are telling ourselves, that's a woman. I need a president for a man. I need an MP for a man. And the other one is the individual, level of inequality, that it is about me. What do? We need to build the capacity of women so that they are able to get to understand their potential and work towards making it better. So basically, for us to address these barriers, we need to look at it from the level of inequality and then address it at a particular level because they are all interconnecting. There's an intersectionality of all that.
All right, so it has to be contextualized.
Yes.
Just don't come up with interventions that are blanket or umbrella. Okay, what would you like to add on that? Because we're trying to look at the way forward and how to ensure that we have many Geraldines, and many more who are in the tech space, in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think basically to add to what she has said, of course, we have the socialization, we have the individual barriers, where you find also women being naturally inclined, and really it's a project of, as she has said, socialization, being generally inclined to what I said, softer jobs, less demanding jobs. That's besides the point. But on this particular International Women's Day, I would just like to draw on inspiration from women like Niva Mwendwa, and for me specifically, Dr. Sally Kosgei, as I make my point. When I was 5 or 6 years old, I saw her handing, I hope my mom is watching this, I saw her handing a document to the president, the then President Daniel Arap Moi. I did not know what her job was, but I said, that's the job I will do. I just need to work hard. When I become big, I will know.
Whatever she is, I want to be that.
Yes, so that children become really what they see. Yeah. So that we need women to sit in these spaces. We need to see examples. Very many people like Dr. Geraldine over here, they will tell you one day perhaps that I saw you on TV one day, or I saw when you received this award, and courtesy of that then I decided to pursue STEM as a career. So that we need to first of all highlight women who are already winning, because children become what they see. Examples. 2, awareness is everything. Also, I have experience having grown up, I'd say, in a marginalized area of the country, what used to be called arid and semi-arid areas still is. But then the awareness by the women of those days, the women who are fighting the fights against GBV, you may think there is no impact, but some of us are where we are because of the people who actually came to the grassroots level and pushed for awareness and advocacy towards gender equality. So that my point being, the fight is bottom up. I know it's a popular phrase, but it is bottom up. Forget the 4 of us or the 3 of us who've gone to school and are in these spaces where now we can discuss, and yourself also. We are sort of in the urban spheres. It is a grassroots. And the power of grassroots mobilizers has also been seen even in conflict situations where the UN and other international NGOs empower grassroots. But then at the grassroots level, you find that these conversations, it's top up. Policies are made at the top, and then the people at the bottom are given those policies. We need to think about how do we start so that when I come here, I'm speaking at perhaps a national level or a county level, but the people in my village, what are they doing on a day-to-day? Mm-hmm. Who is giving them these messages that Scholastica has said around awareness and advocacy? Another issue is gender-sensitive and gender-geared budgeting. we're thinking about this is budgeting season, both at the county government and the national government. Are we looking at the budgets from a gender lens? Are we thinking about how we will pass budgets that will support initiatives toward empowering and also moving the needle towards gender empowerment? Because money also is at the root of equality. As much as we do awareness and advocacy, at some point money will need to be forked out to pay for things. Money will need to support programs, so that we also putting our money where our mouth is in terms of gender empowerment and our policies. I'd also like to say from a policy organization level, do we have gender policies? Because, like for instance, at the Kenya Private Alliance, Sector Alliance, we launched our gender mainstreaming policy. One of the things there was having organizational policies, because policies, at least it is somewhere. You have something to look at. The next step is implementation and also monitoring evaluation. Lastly, and this is actually, I'd say, is a problem. It's almost a disaster as far as I'm concerned. And it's also one of the things that is being discussed by the Kenyan delegation right now in the UN Commission on the Status of Women, is gender-based violence. And gender-based violence is not just gender-based violence when you think of me, the adult. Look at the number of child pregnancies, girl pregnancies that we had since the pandemic. Look at the rising cases of sodomy and sexual abuse against children. You know that gender-based violence is closely linked to lack of productivity and also depression and mental health challenges. What are we doing to address gender-based violence? Because a study that we did, a baseline study at KEPSA, demonstrated that women who are in gender-based violence situations, whether in informal or formal employment, are less productive. So that your mental health also has to go in tandem with your physical health. All these barriers have to be broken, because you have to be a wholesome person for you to even participate. I could come give you awareness, but if you're not okay, you can't do well. So that really, I'd say, it's a multi-pronged approach, and we all have to have all hands on desk. Collaboration, grassroots level, county governments, national government, civil society, and all players, let us speak in one voice so that we can move the needle towards gender empowerment, gender equality, and a more sustainable and healthy society. Thank you.
All right, great insights there you've shared, and of course we'll continue to delve deeper into some of the interventions that are needed. How do you expect her to thrive if you constantly expose her to gender-based violence, affecting her line of thought and her performance? Great insight you've shared with me there. And we will be talking about this, and of course just after the break, Dr. Githaiga, also to look at how you're using some of these realities to customize the interventions and, how you approach your inclusion of women in the financial space when we come back from the break. And we take that break now. This is Daybreak. Remember, it's a conversation around celebrating the role of women in society. You can be part of it at Citizen TV Kenya, at Ayub Abdikadir, at Safin_Achieng. We'll share your thoughts as we continue with this conversation after the break.